talking about fans, and this is our first section about fans. And I have met some truly extraordinary people who I would like to bring up. And you cannot talk about fans without a fanthropologist, which is very cool. It's a new term I have just learned. So we are going to be welcoming up Meredith Levine of Random Machine, who is a fanthropologist, along with Amber Miller and Amanda Lane Miller from Fangirl Central, creators who understand how storytelling and fandom collide and who've built vibrant communities and fan bases. And I am so excited to meet you. I know I haven't met Amber and Amanda, but come on up here. And they'll be putting up chairs behind us, don't worry. But we just barely met, and we haven't even met yet. Hello. I know you just...
Hello.
Hello.
Amanda.
Hello.
Amber.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly. So thank you so much for coming to Full Focus. And
Thanks for having us.
I will let Meredith take it away. We will have one more chair for you, too, just because. But
yeah.
How did you get titled as a fanthropologist, and how did you all meet?
I wish I could tell you I made it up. I did not. I was in graduate school at UCLA with an emphasis in fan studies. I have my master's in critical media studies from UCLA. And there's a scholar in our industry who I know Amanda knows, named Henry Jenkins, and I studied under him. And there were these meetups in Los Angeles back when transmedia storytelling was the buzzword. And I saw a woman named Kristen Olson who worked at Trailer Parks speak, and she had a department called Fanthropology. And I was in grad school, and I looked at her, and I said, I want to do that. And so that's what I do. And then I met these lovely women at a fandom professional meetup. Through another fandom professional named Ivan Asquith, who was running some stuff in LA. And it turns out our social circles are very small. The fandom professional industry as a subsection of Hollywood is very small. Yes, we all know each other. And so that's how I met Amber and Amanda, and I will let them talk to you a little bit about what they do with Fangirl Central.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
I'm Amber.
We're Fangirl Central, where being a fangirl is central to our identity. We are filmmakers, fandom experts, and creators. So we make content and research about primarily Black and queer and femme fandom, but specifically highlighting marginalized fandoms and how fans with marginalized identities really create the conversations in these fandom spaces online and offline, and our work really centers them and how we can make fandom more inclusive while also recognizing how marginalized identities push culture forward.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh, also we're sisters.
Yes.
So I'm going to do a little bit of like level setting and framework, and I put my academic hat on for a minute. When we talk about fandom, we're talking about something specific, and when we were prepping for this talk, I wanted to make sure that we were all using the same framework for fandom. So for the sake of this conversation, we are going to use the Kresnikov Research and Insights model of fandom. I did work on the foundational research on that project, which was about what is the same about fandom no matter what somebody's a fan of, and what is different depending on what somebody's a fan of, and the role that fandom plays in everyday life. So we're going to disambiguate fandom from a behavioral set. When I say fandom, I do not mean audience. When I say fandom, I do not mean consumer. And those things are very different, because fandom and the role of fandom in everyday life, according to this model, is fandom serves three things. Fandom serves a community function, an emotional regulation and self-care function, and then all of that is wrapped up in the idea of identity. Fandom is something that people take on upon themselves. So when we get into the nuts and bolts of this conversation about how do people develop fandom, how can you as filmmakers start to build fandom, those sorts of things, part of that is on you, but a lot of that happens because audiences turn themselves into fandoms. And so we're going to talk about that. So fandom, we said community, emotional regulation and self-care and identity. Fandom is a tool for community. It is how people relate to each other. And can you talk about how fandom and community intersect in the work that you do?
Yeah, there's no way that we understand fandom without community. I think just because we grew up in the same household and we were fans of similar things, and we grew up in a very predominantly white school, and having each other be like representation of certain types of fans for each other was a built-in community.
Right. Meaning, yes, growing up at a predominantly white school, for example, I was a fan of One Direction, and so that was a very white thing to do.
In quotation marks.
But I had I guess like the self-confidence to know that that was nonsense, because I grew up with proof in my house of another black sister who liked a lot of the same things that I did that would be dubbed something that was out of the ordinary for my demographic. So that was
and like I think because of the ways our marginalized identities intersected with each other, I always felt weird. And I know I'm speaking for both of us, but we are not in the same grade, although maybe some of you thought we were twins. We're not. But so we were kind of the black sheep of our grades, but with each other, we were together. And whenever we would go to Comic-Con or a concert or a meet and greet, I feel like those were the most present moments I ever felt, whether it was in line for the Marvel Studios panel at Hall H, or meeting other 21 Pilots fangirls in line and like having someone buy pizza for us all because we'd been standing in line for a while, or like blogging about The Social Network on Tumblr, and having that be a whole fandom for one movie. I found community online and in those fan spaces IRL. And it made me know, like not even feel, but know that I wasn't the only one.
I think it's funny because a lot of times when you are a fangirl, you feel like very alone, like publicly, but it's ironic because, okay, second One Direction mention, sorry y'all. But like to go to a space and they're like, why do you like that? Like blah, blah, blah. But then they're also like, topping the charts. It's like, obviously I'm not the only one. That sounds ridiculous that you're berating me for being a fangirl over something that is popular. So I feel like you can feel isolated in fangirling, but the community that you find online and in special safe spaces, I don't know, there's just a power in realizing that.
And to bring it back to your actual question, because we didn't answer it, but I think that is what is kind of key about the work that we do, is that we use fangirl very proudly and gender neutrally too, because we're both non-binary, gender fluid. We use fangirl to like reclaim that word, because in the past it's been used to call people, you know, hysterical, crazy, toxic, and people can be all those things, but it's not just relegated to women or girls. And also, women and girls and queer people and black people are usually pushing the culture forward, and we're also looked down upon for being so expressive and so passionate about the fandoms that are our fan objects, when we're the ones generating that success.
Something came up here. You know, I mentioned we're going to use some frameworks. Well, we got the term object of fandom. Object of fandom is the thing that people are fans of. And fandom, because it's an identity thing, is a relationship thing. So, so the community relates to each other, and there is a relationship between the community and the object of fandom, and this relationship can be a very diverse set of experiences, with everything from being incredibly protective over it to being incredibly invasive and intrusive with the object of fandom. There are a lot of ways of relating, and from the fan going to object of fandom direction, that can be really scary and intimidating. And from the object of fandom going to the fandom direction, that can also be very opaque and intimidating when you're cultivating a relationship with an audience that is greater than the amount of people you actually know. Yeah. So we also said emotional regulation and self-care. One of the big benefits of fandom is you get to experience a full range of emotions in a safe and contained way. It's like practice for the real world. This may be the wrong room for sportsing, but if you ask a sports fan, when their team wins, they'll say we won, and they'll say we lost, and that fan had nothing to do with it. But therein lies the feelings, the emotional regulation. I'm sure a lot of us
The
in
investment.
COVID did a lot of rewatching of comforting things. And in uncertain times, we go back to our objects of fandom for comfort. And then the last part is identity. All of this wraps up into how we perceive ourselves. And oftentimes when you meet another fan of the thing that you're a fan of, you stick a whole host of projections about that person on that person because you share an object of fandom. And I'm doing my best to have this not be a panel entirely dedicated to heated rivalry, but I can guarantee you that's what the three of us talk about when nobody's watching us. So there is this identity component of being a fan. And part of identity is value systems. And because we're in a social justice space, I want to ask y'all about how your fandoms have impacted your moral frameworks and your sense of how you see the world, and how your sense of how you see the world has impacted your choice of fandoms and where that intersection is between fandom and social justice in your worlds.
I can start with Cheetah Girls. You want to end with Avatar: Last Airbender?
Sure, let's do that.
Okay, so when Cheetah Girls came out, we were, how old was I? 7?
Yes.
I was 7. Amber was 5. We sped through, our bath that night. We didn't even want to take it. We wanted to skip it because Cheetah Girls were coming on at 8/7 Central. And we were there. It was appointment television for us. Disney Channel always was. And the opening line of Cheetah Girls is, "You can do anything." And it was that moment on that I had such a delusional sense of self-confidence.
We grew a lot of things from our childhood, a lot of objects of fandoms had built-in self-affirmations.
Right. Like Hannah Montana, "Life's What You Make It."
All the Hannah Montana songs.
"We're all in this together."
Yes.
"Nobody's perfect."
Yeah.
"The party's just begun."
Yeah.
Like we really internalized it, and yes, it was like Disney and commercial and mainstream, but we were children, and so I feel like grew up with just sense of like delusional self-confidence, yes, but also like a moral obligation to do the right thing. We grew up very, very Christian. We made a Disney Channel musical review where we explored how Disney Channel as our religion, because Disney Channel is very Christian. It's very pure. It's purity rings. It's very like no cursing. But through that, the things that we were able to take from it was our own sense of right and wrong, and our own sense of confidence and self-empowerment that we try to instill on the people around us. And so that was our foundation, was Disney Channel. Happy 20 years to High School Musical. It was yesterday. And we flew in early to go to East High. So
Go Wildcats.
Go Wildcats. But then Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is our favorite show collectively.
Avatar: The Last Airbender, I don't know if you guys know, is loosely based off a lot of different times in history in East Asia. And I feel like basically any art or media that is based on anything in history or a dystopian is inherently a cautionary tale. And so watching Avatar: The Last Airbender around like 12, I was, we were being taught like how different parts of war times affect children and affect different people. And I feel like that, rewatching it in my 20s, I was like, oh, well, they were laying it all out here. And I feel like I came up with that same conclusion whenever I would watch anything that was like a dystopian, like Hunger Games. I was a big fan of that as well. And then...
Yeah, I think that just like Meredith said earlier, how fandom like gives you a place to kind of practice emotions in a like safe environment, it also gives you a place to practice like social justice. And so it literally is transformative. If you feel something from a piece of art, you are going to be changed in some way. And if you're a fan, it's like it activates you that one step further to want to model the types of things that you see in the media.
It also, the passion that you have as a fan of anything, I feel like you have a lot, you respond to call to actions, like, okay, third One Direction mention. Like, you rally the troops to vote for, like, award shows. And, I mean, you can directly translate that to bring people out for protests or signing petitions or actually voting for the election, and stuff like that. So I feel like the passion that you have growing up as a fan just translates to your morals and your beliefs.
And if you care about your community, which fans usually do, it's just another aspect of your identity, just like a church community or just like an activist community. It's people that you trust and you care about and want the best for them. And if you're active in that fandom, it can, translate.
Yeah, caring for your community is a hallmark of fandom. And I'm going to bring up and circle back to a couple things that we've touched on. Like, there are a couple ways to approach this, and I'm going to transition this conversation into the filmmaker space, which I rarely talk in the filmmaker space because more often than not, my line of work is more pertinent to creators and television and franchises where there's a lot of time spent over time. But there are a couple ways to approach this. One is aggregate audience, activate audience. So Markiplier is a YouTuber in the gaming space. Markiplier has a movie opening on 2,500 screens in the United States for his directorial debut. And this happened because Markiplier has been on the internet for somewhere between 10 and 20 years and has built up his fandom to the point where he didn't get a distribution deal. He just made a movie, and his fans called theaters and said, hey, we want to see this movie. And the folks making the movie were like, sure, all you have to do is put it on your screen Thursday at 8 p.m. and run it for as long as people want to see it. And so that is build your audience first, do something with them later. There is also make a thing first and give it enough time to develop a fandom. Here's an example that is queer. The Rocky Horror Picture Show was not a hit movie when it came out. In fact, it flopped. In fact, there are some folks at the Sundance Film Festival who probably worked in international film finance and distribution for that film in the 70s. And they will tell you that it was bad and it flopped. However, the Rocky Horror Picture Show is now one of the longest running theatrical releases of all time because people gave it enough time to develop fandom. And so there are these two models, and we heard from a creator. The creator model is get audience first, do something with them later. And sometimes that involves make what you want, and sometimes that involves a lot of feedback, versus the other one, which is where we get into the relationship between filmmaking, is time. Absolutely. So when you think about your objects of fandom, personally, how much time have they spent with you? How long have you held on to your objects of fandom? How long were they on the air? You mentioned One Direction 3 times. They've made a lot of music.
Do it 4th and 5th.
You mentioned Avatar: The Last Airbender, which had a whole TV run and then a whole adaptation run and I think a feature.
Mm-hmm. We don't talk about that.
Okay, we don't talk about the feature. But considering your objects of fandom and considering we are in a filmmaker space, how would you encourage filmmakers to be good gardeners and stewards, knowing that they only have a tiny sort of sometimes bigger role in deciding whether or not what they make gets a fandom?
Well, I have 2 things to say about that quickly.
Yeah.
The first one is that this man named Brian Newman, who is going to be on a panel here tomorrow, he said that film is like one of the only products where people don't budget for the marketing right before, they don't budget to get it to market. They don't budget for the marketing, or I can't listen. It's been a long day. They don't, but film, basically they don't budget for marketing when you first start developing the movie, which I feel like you need to have at least a little bit of a plan, even if you have no money, even if you don't have enough time to like build an audience in the way that Markiplier does. you can at least get to know your audience. You need to get to know who are the types of people that you want to connect to the movie. And if it can't just be you, it can't just be like, well, people who are just like me. You have to like understand, but like, what does the theater sound like? What do you want them to emote while they're in the theater? What group of people would come to the movie together and like galvanize their friend group to go see your movie, and why? And then go to those places where those people are and understand and just like observe, just like take notes, just be a human in the world and be a fan yourself of because I feel like people look down on super fans. This is the title that the industry is calling them, but fans have never called themselves super fans. I would be caught dead calling myself a super fan, because I don't know what that means. I am a fangirl. I am a fan. I'm part of fandoms, and though I know people relegate being a fan to when you're a child or a teenager, and then you become an adult and all of a sudden you like something a reasonable amount for the rest of your life.
Fangirling is nostalgic.
And fangirling is nostalgic. Remember when we liked those people. Remember when we went to those concerts. Remember when we made art about how much we liked stuff. But you have to keep it with you for the rest of your life, especially if you're a filmmaker. Why are you not acting on your passions? Why are you hiding how much you like something because you're afraid of being judged by it? If you're a real dedicated artist, you should allow yourself to feel those emotions and feel how intense you can feel at a concert, how intense you can feel in the movie theater. You need to allow art to transform you and understand how it can transform you so you can understand how your art can transform other people.
So Amber, you want to weigh in on that?
First of all, this is my older sister, and I love every time she speaks. She's a genius. But I was gonna say, back to the question of like what you can take away as a filmmaker. For an example, if you're making an adaptation of something that already has a built-in fan base, I understand wanting to have different creative directions and changing certain things and updating them sometimes, but it is very important to research whether or not that specific thing that you're tweaking, even if it's a small thing, had any meaning to the original fan base. Because if it is, it will cause the whole film or project to get a sour reaction from that fan base that you had to be your initial audience, like your Kickstarter audience, basically. That was what I wanted to add.
Yeah.
That was from the Avatar Last Airbender thing.
And I forgot the second thing. Ryan Coogler recently said, which I fully agree with, is that you need to give people multiple reasons to want to see your film, especially with the state of the industry right now. It can't just be one thing or one hook that you think is enough. It needs to be multiple different reasons for multiple different kinds of people to buy in. So taking Sinners, for example, you've got horror fans, which are a huge fandom. They just like horror and they'll go see anything that's horror. That's not me, but I understand because I study fandom. And so there's the horror people. There's people that love Michael B. Jordan. That is me. There's people that love Ryan Coogler. That's also me. And there's people that are from the Mississippi Delta, and that is also me. And there's, and people that just love a good time. And Ryan Coogler has established himself as someone who loves a good time and wants to give people a good time. And so it's really a combination of who do you want to present yourself? How do you want to present your film? And why a lot of different people can have a buy-in to your film for a lot of different reasons. And they can be fun. Make it fun. Make a little cake.
Yeah. So we have what came up. I'm going to summarize this a little bit as niche communities at scale. We're post-broadcast. We just are. There is no universal audience. There is no... Four-quadrant is difficult at best and expensive if you're going that way. Niche communities at scale is a way to get enough audience to constitute financial viability without necessarily trying to make your audience all the same. Sinners, Mississippi Delta, Ryan Coogler, Michael B. Jordan, horror films. And then you have cinephiles in general who just like going to the movies and will see whatever's new. That is a huge fandom for movies, cinephiles. One of the things that I want to talk about with our objects of fandom also that is cinema applicable is I saw this. I follow a brand strategist. His name is Eugene. I love his work on Instagram. And one of the things he recently posted about is, in order to build a better world, we have to have enough hope that it's possible. And so one of the things in terms of like developing content that can develop fandom, like we grew up in the dystopian fiction franchise era, the three of us on stage did, of Harry Potter and Hunger Games and Divergent, and it was an era where there was a relative amount of peace, and so we could have a relative amount of like exploration through that lens. But that's not the lens we're in anymore, and we kind of like, I know what my objects of fandom are now. It's heated rivalry, it's nerd fighters, it's theme parks. Because what I want now is a place where I can experience and go through the full range of human emotions in a hopeful, joyful way, rather than a grim way. And I don't know if that's true for both of you. If you think about the through lines with your objects of fandom, what kind of world and picture they paint.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of dystopias being Black in America, because that's just my daily life. So or horror, honestly, I'm scared enough. So yeah, I mean, I love heated rivalry. I won't get into it because we'll be here all day. But I love the ski culture and the hockey culture that I'm in here, because we're from LA.
Boston lost last night. I wouldn't have known that before heated rivalry.
Okay, me neither. But yeah, I mean, the things that I've been really activated on have been hopeful and joyful, but also like good ensembles, which I think is a key element to, if you're gonna want to generate a fan base, is those multiple different buy-ins. So like an ensemble allows a lot of different people to identify with a character versus just one like loner character. You can have people that love those movies, but I tend to see less fandoms around something where it's just one character and they're not really interacting with people, and you're not really getting to know them through their relationships. Right. That's why I love Avatar, The Last Airbender. I love things that are kind of a two-hander. That's why I love The Social Network, Challengers, which is the shirt I'm wearing right now.
I was gonna say, back to the ensemble thing, the MCU was successful because everyone knew it was building up towards the Avengers, and now it's still going. So my through line mainly is ensemble, and I'll speak to that as well, because I grew up with, or my objects of fandom were Avatar, Last Airbender, One Direction, more so over the like a solo artist. It was because they were interacting with each other. They were being flown from here to there, and they had this brother bond that, you know, was seen through the interviews, and that's what made my little fangirl heart flutter. I was like, look at them, they love each other, and they're boys, and they love each other, and they're showing it.
And that's same for film. Like,
yeah.
Like things with successful press tours,
right?
It's the chemistry. If your cast has chemistry, I would really emphasize spending a lot of time on casting, because I know a lot of times people will just take what they can get and try to take the actors they can find as quickly as possible. But casting really matters, and if they have chemistry with themselves, your work is a lot easier, a lot more fun, and a lot smoother if the cast and the crew have a chemistry where people don't feel worried about going to work or worried about what's happening on set. We're making movies, we're not doing brain surgery. It should be fun, and you should be treating people with kindness. So I feel like chemistry starts from the top down, but casting, I think, is key.
And
I was just gonna say one more to ensemble. I also have severe ADHD. I think someone said that. I was gonna say the more characters you have that you're showing their story, the more chances people are able to empathize with them and feel like they have their self-insert in the movie, which is good for audience engagement.
The last thing I want to talk about, and you mentioned marketing budgets and things like that, is time spent over time. One of the reasons why podcasters have an easier time with this, why television tends to have an easier time with this, is it's time spent over time. In that, like, if you have podcasters you're fans of, they're in your ear an hour every week for, if you're really a good podcaster, forever. But most podcasts don't make it more than 10 episodes. And features, it's a little harder to do time spent over time. So thinking about bigger buckets, like production studios. And like A24 came up. A24 is a studio that has a mandate, that has a perspective, so people are fans of the whole body of work. Disney famously did this, where if something is from Disney, it can be a feature and you wait for the next feature, or the Disney Vault, or things like this. The time spent over time component, and time spent over time in features can be press tour. It can be marketing follow-up. It can be planning for something larger than a release window and prepping for something larger than a release window in order to get people engaged over time and give enough out for the fandom to engage with in order to actively participate. In our last 45 seconds, I want to leave with this. Fandom is an active experience. It is a participatory experience. It is, much like religion and social activism, this kind of emotional social experience. And one of the best things, whether you're a documentarian or a filmmaker or a buyer or a distributor, is to give fans enough space and enough time to digest it and tell their friends and have this runway to allow things to take off.
Yeah, you want your audience to talk to each other about it. You don't want them to be ashamed to like what they like. You want them to excitedly tell each other about it and talk to each other. And when they're talking, then you don't have to do anything.
Yeah. When they're working, you don't have to be, and so feed them. Thank you so much for having us, and I hope you have a fan-fueled rest of your Sundance experience.
Happy Sundance.
Thank you, everybody. I just wanted to say also, we're going to be in Sinners cosplay on Saturday on Main Street, interviewing people. So if you want to be interviewed by us, just find us on Main Street. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. We can shake your hand. Thank you.
Amber, can you do a group photo on
Group photo. Fans photo. I love it. Yay. Okay, who's going to go to the Sinners cosplay on Saturday? Yay! That sounds amazing.
I smoke, she's stacked.
Okay.
We're fangirl.central on Instagram
Yes.
if you guys want to hear about it.
Definitely take some waters. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that is the most mentions we've ever had of One Direction on this stage ever. So we've already set some records, and we just started, which is great. As far as any other fandoms, so let's see if I can do it this end. Anyone? There we go. Thank you so much. I am, like I said, Gen Xer, so Star Trek is one of my biggest fandoms, as is Star Wars, yes. And so that is huge, and may or may not, and you know what? I may not admit this. Well, I may not show you. I'll admit it right now. We may or may not have a family photo from the 90s. All in our Star Trek uniforms. So when you were talking about leaning into, that is worthy of a lot of laughter. You will not see it. It is a blackmail photo, and thankfully it was done before you could put things on your phone. But I loved what you said about leaning into fandom, and I thought about sports. You know, we don't shame anybody who wears jerseys and does face painting and goes to sports locations like that. Like, fandom is actually awesome. And I also love what you said about studios. Studios can be fandom, especially as a brand. And I would love to see what if we had foundations or other types of studios that could be created with a brand towards fandom. And I truly think that's possible. So we'll think big.